This is Kate Baconsale. You're listening to Baconsale.
Two possibilities exist. Either we are alone in the universe, or we are not. Both are equally terrifying. I'm sure the universe is full of intelligent life. It's just probably been too intelligent to come here. Right?
Wait, you scared me, and then you made me laugh. What is this, Baconsale?
And you kind of condescended to all of us.
I mean, a little bit.
Welcome to Baconsale. I'm Joel.
I'm Kent.
And I'm Zack.
We'd like to thank you for listening to our last show, our Decade Dance for 2000s horror movies.
So good.
It was fun to kind of look back on those, and I was surprised I had seen any.
I was surprised the ones you'd seen.
Yeah, 'cause they're terrifying.
And honestly, there was a couple of comments that also were kind of in that same vein of people who were like surprised they'd seen any. For example, on Instagram, @CrumpyLady said, "How have I seen your number one pick? And I don't usually see scary movies. Oh yes, I remember. I got trapped and tricked into watching that one. Rude. And I'm not talking about Shaun of the Dead, which is fantastic. I also love that Zombieland made the cut. It's one of my favorites. I like comedy horror."
Yes.
So, nice,
Comedy
right?
horror is a great genre.
And on Twitter, @BakingBab says, "I may be the listener that you are speaking to. The one that has seen very few and needs to be educated about horror movies. So thanks. The best parts about the episode were Joel forgetting about signs and the fun facts about Shaun of the Dead, which I have seen." So
Yeah.
it's kind of fun. There are people who are like, "Oh, wait a minute. I don't like horror movies, but there are these good movies that just so happen to be horror
Actually,
movies."
Mark Buffington sent me a parody song of Ace of Base. I saw the sign of Joel forgot signs. It was pretty great.
Dare he?
Yeah.
How dare he? I'm still kicking myself about that. I need to watch it.
I know.
Yeah. But that's not what we're talking about today, guys. Stop bashing on me. What are we talking about today, Zach?
We are talking about close encounters of the Baconsale kind.
Aliens.
Is that the title of the show?
Maybe. We are discussing
Ooh.
aliens, both the history and in movies.
It is time for our kind of annual show.
What do we call these?
Well,
Monster
they're-
of the Weeks.
Baconsale approved Monster of the Year.
Yeah,
sort
Monster of
thing.
the Year.
So we've covered zombies.
Yes.
Vampires.
Yes.
Werewolves or
Yes.
lycans. Witches.
Yes.
And now, aliens. Am I missing any?
No, I think you covered them all.
Frankensteins.
We haven't done that yet.
Many Frankensteins.
Drives me nuts when
Just
people do
guys.
that.
Right.
And then even then, though, we could do a whole episode on Frankenstein and all the movies and the literature.
And the number of ghost shows we could do, but we are choosing to do Alien. Very specific, and it deviates a little bit from the horror theme, but still fits in this month.
Does it, though?
Based on the movies we've seen in this category, they'd fit.
Well, that honestly brings up a great question. Do you think that aliens are scary? Because that to me is the basis of whether or not they are horror movies.
Well, I've said this on the show, I think, a number of times before, but generally speaking, alien movies don't frighten me as, say, monsters or ghosts or killers or things like that.
Like when you were a kid, you never thought an alien would abduct you, right?
Well, I mean, I thought I'd befriend an alien after giving him Reese's Pieces.
Exactly, but like we always thought like werewolves would chase us down the street, or we'd see one in the woods, or vampires could be a thing out there.
Sparkling somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. But aliens have never been this huge, at least to me, big threat until recently. Actually, this month I've been dedicating a lot of time to watching, obviously, alien movies and playing Alien Isolation on PS4, which is terrifying, by the way.
Is that Alien Isolation? Has anything to do with the xenomorphs? Is that
Yes, it is. It is the Alien franchise.
Okay.
And so I've kind of come to terms that, like, if there is anything real that we've talked about, it might be aliens. And honestly, they may not kill me, but I will not like what they do to me. And there's not many ways to even, like, kill them.
Well, can I ask you a probing question?
Oh, here we go.
Just get it out of the way early. No, but I mean, you don't find aliens scary, but can I ask you, do you believe in extraterrestrials? You just said probably the could be the most realistic of anything
Probably
we've talked
the
about.
most real. I think it's foolish.
Well, of course, we've talked about zombies and vampires and werewolves and, well, witches.
Right. It's foolish to say that we're alone in the universe.
I absolutely agree with that.
Do I believe in little gray men? No, I don't. But if they are out there, I'm scared. But
you should apologize right now.
I do think there are other humanoids like us out there in the universe. Do they come here? I'm not entirely sure either.
I will agree with you, Kent, that I feel like it's foolish to think that we are completely alone. Both from a religious standpoint and a scientific standpoint, it's foolish to think that we are alone in this giant universe.
Right.
But the question is, can they travel here? Do they have the ability to travel here?
And why would they?
And what's their purpose?
And why do only hillbillies see them?
It's not just hillbillies.
Yeah.
We'll get to that.
Yes.
But I do feel like 98% of the stories that we hear are probably explainable or bogus. But there's that 2% where I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
But what happened there? And I think the reason that aliens never really felt as scary to me was because they felt something that couldn't happen. It was like kind of this outer worldly weird thing that, that wouldn't happen to me. But then when there was a movie that I saw, Fire in the Sky, that I was like, oh man, that would be terrifying to be abducted against your will, and those horrible experiments that you see on the screen.
And
It's
the PTSD
terrifying.
that follows.
Exactly. Then X-Files, I started watching that, and they managed to make aliens as scary as well. And so I started to realize, I get it. I get why people are scared of aliens. But there's something about a little gray man that I've never really found that scary.
Right.
Because I'm like, Although the funny thing is I'm like, humanoids, sure. If you think about people on other planets that look like us, that's a possibility. Why do they look like little gray men? And then the reason I bring this up is because someone said, well, people were coming from other planets. They would look like us. They would look human. They'd look like that. And I'd say, well, yeah, but we've shot apes into space. What's to say these little gray men aren't like apes from another planet that they're sending here to experiment?
Looking for our cows.
Yeah.
No, but it's true. But like every movie you see with humanoids, they're always very enlightened, way more cultured than we are.
Right.
But if it is the grays, they are devious in nature. There's an invasion. And I think that's what we're focusing on here, is not just like us traveling to other worlds in sci-fi movies, because we always do cover movies at the end of our Baconsale approved shows.
Yeah, the Monster of the Years.
We are going for like alien invasion, takeover, just personal elements with aliens.
And more horror, too. We're not
Yes.
going to get into kind of, the Mac and Me's and the ETs of the world.
Mac and
Mac
Me is
and
pretty
Me.
Why did I
scary.
say Mac and Me first?
I know exactly.
Wow.
You thought about that scene.
I did,
Yeah.
because it's so not scary. But we wanted to get more into the horror element as well,
Right.
And that's what I was going to say, Kent. Is I can kind of laugh about alien movies and laugh them off and all, but I'll tell you what: if I was on a dark road and saw something I couldn't explain, it would terrify me.
Well, that happened to me, and I've brought this up a few times before when I was in Australia, just driving middle of nowhere, because it's all country area where I was serving a mission. We were driving just in our white Corolla, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, just this light went poof over the car. Soundless, though, but a light just surrounded the car. We didn't backfire. No one threw a firework at us.
This
Like
is
we
at
were
night?
middle of nowhere. Dark
No
of
lights
night.
around.
Exactly. And we stopped the car. We looked around the car. There was no burn marks or anything, and there was nothing wrong with the car either. And we just kind of went, "Oh, that was a bit strange. Let's just go home. That was weird. Like let's get out of here." And we kind of just chalked it up to strange. Like we almost thought maybe, and I've joked about the parallel dimension sort of thing. Like maybe us in another dimension went one way and we went this way, sliding door style.
Okay.
But apparently,
Wow, you just brought up sliding doors.
Right?
Like Gwyneth Paltrow movie?
Yes, that's what I just brought up.
What?
But I was talking with Nicole D. Hale, and she was mentioning that in Australia, that when they see lights over cars, which we're going to mention in the show as well here in the States, but there are aliens that basically wait till people are alone and
Yeah.
travel above them and take them.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I've never had any sort of like direct experience in that regard. But I do remember one time, I growing up, and even now I live near an Air Force base. And we were driving up a highway right by the Air Force base, and I looked over and I saw a light in the sky. This is only a couple years ago, so I'm a rational adult at this point.
Sure.
I think I was driving
Just in the past
kids
couple
are in the
years.
back,
Right.
The huge bus I'm driving with all the kids in the back. But I saw this weird kind of light in the sky, and then it streaked like just across the sky, and it was like
way too fast.
It was still for a second, and then it just streaked and then disappeared. And I was like, well, that was weird. And we were actually going to my parents' house. And by the time we got to my parents' house, there were a bunch of helicopters. And it was night, so I don't know if they were black helicopters, but there were a bunch of helicopters all around the base, like flying around. And I'm like, what happened? And in my mind, I was just like, it was just some weapon test or something like that. Or something went wrong with some aircraft. But it just, and then afterwards, it was one of the things where I started thinking about, but what if?
well, think about the definition of UFO. We think of these egg-shaped objects, these silver objects that fly in the sky that are aliens, but they're just unidentified.
Right.
And that's it. So what you saw was unidentified to you.
That's just it. Whenever someone says, do you believe in UFOs? I go, do I believe that some objects cannot be identified that are in the sky? Yes, I absolutely do.
Right.
But the problem is UFO has been so associated with aliens and flying saucers that it's become almost a joke.
Well,
to
we're
see
getting our
believe in it.
conspiracy hats on now.
Wow.
Yes.
So, Zach, do you find them scary, and do you think they exist?
And do you have any experiences or friends of note?
I don't have experiences. I do recall there was a time where I was driving in Utah County and saw a really bright light over in the Alpine area.
That's what happens in Utah County when you live there.
And I was driving over. I literally went way off course just to find this light because I thought it might be an alien. It was a construction site. Kind of lame. I don't.
Wait, where
think
was that at?
There's construction sites everywhere there.
near
right
the
now.
point of the mountain. Like
Yeah. There's like this one. There's like this string of lights on the far west side of right when you go to the point of the mountain.
Yeah.
And it's actually it leads up to the site that's like blocked off by police. It's kinda
it
cool.
was that. I was like, is this? I like to think, okay, I'm a pretty logical person and I can logic my way through it, but I'm not gonna lie, alien stuff gives me a little bit of the heebie-jeebies because it feels so unexplained. And by all accounts and all of the things that happen, I always look at it and go, if that's real, we're not thinking of it correctly.
Yeah.
We're missing something. We're using our primitive, stupid monkey brains to figure out like, that's probably what it's like. But I think it's maybe beyond our comprehension.
And that's part of the aliens' plan if they do exist.
Yeah.
And we're going to treat these stories as if they are real accounts.
Yes, as we've expressed, we're skeptics, but we're going to do our best to give a what-if scenario.
But we are not supposed to know aliens exist.
Right.
And if they do exist, they have tried to brainwash us out of thinking that.
Guys, if we get abducted on the drive home, this is going to be so
Not good.
I will tell you about something that did freak me out, and it's from a movie, actually, that is not on this list, surprisingly. So it was 2013, and there was an ad for a movie that popped up, and it was just this static that was going. You'll know what I'm talking about here in a second. It was just this static, and then you saw the letters, or saw the words,
I know.
"You are not alone," or "We are not alone." One of those two, right?
Yep.
And it was this creepy thing, and then through the static, you see a face, and the face pops up, and it's Zod, and it's Man of Steel.
It's Michael Shannon.
But they gave the message that's in that movie. They just played as a commercial, and I
Because that's an alien invasion story.
I am getting like
It totally
goosebumps
is.
just thinking about
But
it.
you don't think of Superman as an alien.
No.
But
No.
then, until in that
But
context of Man of Steel,
people
it's like,
don't know he's there until aliens
and
attack.
it's that moment where
Same with Avengers.
the moment where it's like Zod sends a message to Earth. I go, I'm afraid of that. That scares me.
Yeah. Well, and that's if we had that concept, or one day our communications were taken over by something that said we're extraterrestrial beings.
You're not alone.
No,
That would be
Stephen
freaky.
Hawking said we need to stop reaching out because if they find us, they will dominate us and we will follow Darwin's law. So we've talked about this a bit. I do want to talk about the types of aliens. And by the way, there are so many types, but I'm going to focus on
Break
3
it
or
down.
4.
Yes.
So we've talked about the grays. And Joel, let's kind of just go back and forth. But grays are from the Zeti Reticuli system. It's located about 40 light years away.
Approximately.
However,
40.2.
40 exactly. You take a right turn somewhere there. And these are the ones most commonly described by alien abductees who've been returned back to Earth. Like these are the little green men are actually gray. And they're typically, based on all these stories, 1.5 meters or 4 to 5 feet.
Yeah, they're little short guys.
But these are the malicious ones. They are trying to seek our genetic material. And they're trying to cultivate us, possibly create hybrids. And hybrids is another type. Mm-hmm. So these are mixed between humans and gray alien species, and these are created through DNA manipulation methods and taking reproductive systems of humans to make these hybrids. And this
Very
is
sanitized way of saying
right,
it.
exactly.
Yeah.
This is this would be for the takeover of Earth.
Well, in the X-Files, because that's going to be brought up inevitably a couple
Yes.
times on the show, one of the big points they make is that they're trying to make these alien-human hybrids. That's like the purpose of their visitation here is to try to get this formula correct. But one of my favorite things about X-Files, and this kind of goes to what we were talking about before, is that all these little gray men, they are merely a governmental cover-up. It's pilots, Air Force pilots dressed in suits to get people's attention over here.
Are they always?
Almost always.
Okay.
Because they're like getting their attention over here so then they can do this other experimentation over
Way
here.
more malicious.
Yeah. And I was like, I love that idea of like, no, that whole thing, it's a conspiracy because there's actual other stuff going on. Mm-hmm. So.
And speaking of the government takeover, because we can get real conspiratorial on this show.
And we may.
The Reptilians. I mean, we've seen series on this. I think V back in the 80s and then about 10 years ago is all about a reptilian race that wears our skin and controls the government and media and everything.
Yeah.
If you want to go down the rabbit hole on this, Just go to YouTube for any of this and look up celebrities are reptiles.
Yes.
And you're going to see Justin Bieber flashing his lizard eyes when he's in court.
Yeah.
All these celebrities who kind of freeze, and they're either like hybrids or robots or lizards controlled by aliens.
Or humans who are just fallible, but yes.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. Not skeptic. Not skeptic.
Yeah, exactly.
We got to be what ifs here.
But yeah, reptilians also kind of go into Doctor Who. A lot of them live underground because they were forced underground. So there's underground tunnels everywhere that doesn't feature the characters of us. They're a reptilian race waiting for the day to come back. But a lot of these
They're controlling the world through the Denver airport.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A lot of these are already people in power, and we'll never know it.
And we hear a lot about those types of aliens. The one I find most fascinating, if I may, Kent, is the Nordics.
Okay, so funny. I
So
love it.
The Nordic in ufology, ufology. That's how you say
That's
it,
a
right?
thing. Yes.
It's a thing. Ufology.
Ufology.
Nordic.
It sounds like you're about to say something like dirty word.
Nordic aliens are humanoid extraterrestrials who resemble Nordic Scandinavians. So they're about 6 to 7 feet tall. So a tall Scandinavian with long blonde hair, blue eyes, and fair skin. So if you see a tall Swedish person, they're probably an alien?
Yeah.
I don't understand this one.
That's some Men in Black logic right there.
In fact, I was looking for ways to spot aliens, and these are the easiest to spot, right? Because,
Yes.
well, other than seeing gray men, but you may forget you ever see them. But
What are they,
these,
the silence?
actually, some of them have that power. There's these
He's
aliens.
Doctor Who.
Yeah.
There are these aliens called the Tall Whites that love to gamble. They're in Vegas, and they are like they're not like the Nordics, but if you meet them, you will forget about them immediately.
Are they the ones that making all the clones on Genosha?
Yes, that too. We're going so many different levels here. But if you're looking for a Nordic alien, they can be distinguished by their concern for the planet,
Camino. If I don't correct myself, it's Camino.
Okay.
Say you got it wrong.
Yeah.
concern for the human race's development, and serving as guides to assist humans in soul growth. So if there are life coaches that care about the environment and have blonde hair and blue eyes, they're an alien.
Which makes perfect sense.
Doesn't it? Let's just accuse
Basically,
everyone.
every Bond henchman is an alien because they're tall and blonde and
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't trust blondes anymore.
yeah. I don't think you should.
But I think it's funny because
Ladies.
I would say most of the alien types are peaceful, but the ones we focus on, the grays and reptilians, are in charge of a lot of the malicious stuff.
Yeah. But there are also different types of encounters that you can get. So J. Allen Hynek, he's a UFO researcher or a UFOologist.
Perfect.
He's
UFOlogist?
He's the one who created the different types of close encounters, namely 3 kinds. So you have close encounters of the first kind. That's a visual sighting, something less than 500 feet away that you can't explain.
Yeah.
That's a first kind. So I believe I've had a close encounter of the first kind with that light I saw. I don't know if it was 500 feet away, but it was close enough that it was weird. Then you have the second kind. This is where a physical effect is alleged. This can be your electronic device frizzing out, or animals freaking out, or paralysis, and like you could freeze up, or you get some sort of smell.
Say it.
And then you have close encounters of the third kind.
Yeah. Boom, 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 boom.
So this is one very famously a movie made by Steven Spielberg, but this is when an animated entity is present. Humanoids, robots, any type of thing that interacts with you. That is a third kind. Now there are unofficial. That's like the official ones. But people since then have created a fourth kind, which includes abduction, a fifth kind, which includes communication, close encounters of the sixth kind, which is death. Someone dies or like an animal dies. And then there's seventh, which is hybrid creation. So those aren't official. But in case you're wondering what kind of encounter you've had, you now have a handy scale to go by.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's going to want to one-up each other. On the
Oh, you've
different
had
kinds.
a fifth kind? I had a sixth kind.
Like I tried to. I think I got a second kind. No big deal. So we're going to get to the first 3-4-ish kinds.
Yes.
But before that, like, we're going to... Joel, would you say most of these happen in English-speaking countries?
Yes, in fact, statistics show that English-speaking countries, especially the United States, have the most common stories of abductions and sightings. Why is that?
I wonder if it's just we need something from our culture to be ours.
Are they predominantly in the Midwest?
So I actually have the top 5 states with the most UFO sightings, and this is, by the way, just 2019 to 2020. This isn't for the past 60, 70 years that these have been predominant here in the States. This is just the past year. And there have been hundreds in each of these states. These are UFO sightings. And so the top 5 states are, so 5-1 is New Mexico.
Is number 5.
Number 5, Maine. Number 4. Number 3 is New Hampshire. Number 2 is Montana. So kind of out in the middle of nowhere. Number 1, Idaho.
Really?
Yeah.
Come on, it's still the middle of nowhere.
It is. Utah ranks 16th. We had 137 sightings in the past year alone.
Wow.
Of
Reported sightings.
unidentified
Of
flying
unidentified
objects.
flying objects.
That's bizarre to me because, like, that is not the Midwest.
No. And actually, the South is not a great place to be if you want to see a UFO, surprisingly. So the states with the fewest UFO sightings is number 5, Illinois. Number 4, Maryland. 3, New York. 2, Louisiana. Number 1, Texas. And they're ready for them in Texas.
Yeah.
But yeah, surprisingly, Texas,
Wonder if
Louisiana.
they know about firearms.
That's probably... well, they do. They're going to take
That's why
over.
No, they had New York on there. It's like, yeah, they're like, yeah.
No,
well, of course, New York, they're all living among them. I've seen Men in Black. So the thing about it, though, so we did mention this before, just bringing it back a bit. So UFO means unidentified flying object, meaning any aerial phenomena that cannot immediately be identified or explained.
Right.
So previous to when they defined the term UFO, it was like the late 40s and through the 50s, they had these sci-fi movies, but they called them flying saucers or flying discs. In fact, the phrase flying saucer was in the summer of 1940, began kind of in the summer of 1947, when a civilian pilot named Kenneth Arnold reported seeing 9 objects flying in formation near Mount Rainier. And he said they were flying in a saucer-like fashion, which the newspaper put in there, and so flying saucers became a thing. The U.S. Air Force then said, well, we're going to call it UFO or UFOB in 1953, and that became the official word for it. In fact, they even pronounced it UFO before.
Oh, okay.
That's what UFO. Instead of spelling out, they just said UFO.
It's like the people that say at. Yeah.
It is at.
Yeah.
It's literally at. But then even now, like UFOs become kind of a hokey term.
Yeah.
So now they prefer that you say unidentified aerial phenomenon or UAP, which doesn't sound as cool as UFO.
Yep, I hate it.
Yeah.
So I do want to pull it way back from the States and English-speaking countries, and I want to go through the history a little bit.
Let's do this, shall we?
Because we talk about UFOs as if they're kind of a recent thing in the past 7 decades. But it happened throughout history, and I'm not going to go straight ancient aliens here, because we could talk about the pyramids and, aliens. and go as weird as that show goes.
But it was aliens.
So we have some glimpses into the past, and I'm going to start with 218 BC. There's a Roman historian by the name of Titus Livius, and he just recorded a number of journals for what was happening every night. And in one winter, he recorded that phantom ships had been gleaming in the sky. So that was 218 BC.
It's a long time ago.
Long time ago. So jump many years to 74 BC. There were 2 armies about to fight, and right above the battlefield, they said the sky burst asunder, and a huge flame-like body was seen falling between the 2 armies, and its shape was like a wine jar, they said. And it was molten silver. And a wine jar isn't just a bottle. It's a little bit more broad. It was molten silver, and both armies reported it. So this is many people reporting this, which I thought was pretty cool. So happening back in ancient Roman times.
I'm not going to be that guy. I'm not going to be the one that's going to try and explain all these away. But like they have reports even as like 240 BC of Chinese astronomers, 467 BC I think is what they said, talking about Halley's Comet and how it was this unusual thing in the sky. And so anytime these things happen, unusual things in the sky back then, I'm like, is it an actual, ship, or is it just a meteor they didn't know how to explain?
Yeah.
There's a lot of weird stuff that happens in space.
Okay, so I have one. It's from a painting from the 12th century, but it's based on the year 776. And this is a painting. It tells about the siege of Sigeberg Castle in France. Probably not the French pronunciation of that.
It's pronounced France.
France. And the Saxons had surrounded the French, were about to take over the castle. And then apparently they saw flaming shields hovered over this church that they were attacking. And they thought, oh, look, what does the French have on their side? What is this? What is this witchcraft? And so the painting depicts this from 500 years previous, and it's been very well documented throughout history. There's lots of Christian art that, it shows, the Madonna with Saint Giovanni is a painting for the 15th century, and it has Mary, the mother of Jesus, looking down, and above them you see a UFO, and there's a man on a ledge, blocking the light from the UFO shining down. And granted, that could be a depiction of the sun or gods in this Christian imagery, but there's so many like different UFOs with like lights on the side as well, even back then.
And that's the thing, is it's weird how some of the versions of UFOs now are still the same back then. For example, in 1561, in Nuremberg, Germany, people there described the appearance of a large black triangular object, which is pretty common for UFOs. Like triangles are pretty common shape. And they said there were hundreds of spheres, cylinders, and other odd-shaped objects that moved erratically overhead. So there's just like lots of stuff going up in the sky. This is multiple residents of a town in Germany. Also in Switzerland, 5 years later, in 1566, there was a celestial phenomena. They said it fought together in red and black balls in the sky fighting. It's a weird thing to kind of think about what it could have possibly been, that they were able to see color and interaction.
They had no idea what actual technology was at that time.
Yeah.
That's
But
crazy.
It's bizarre to think about.
Also, another painting one is from 1803. This is from Hitachi, Japan. And so there's a book and a painting that corresponds. They talk about a foreign ship and crew right on the coast of Hitachi, Japan. And the ship was made of metal and glass with strange writings on it. So, like, this is all around the world.
It is. Yeah. Well, and even here in the U.S. in 1897, people started reporting seeing airships in various parts of the United States. People said they even talked to the pilot. In fact, it was so prevalent of these airships, people actually were accusing Thomas Edison of being the one who was building all these. And he had to sign, I think he signed an affidavit, or no, he had to come up with a statement saying that he was not behind any of these airships and didn't like really believe in them. But
So he didn't steal it from Tesla yet. Is that what we're saying? Okay.
No, yeah, it was later. February 28th, 1904 in San Francisco, crew members on the USS Supply saw 3 bright red meteors, one egg-shaped and the other 2 round, that approached beneath the cloud layer, then soared above the clouds, departing after 2 to 3 minutes. Which is just weird to think about. Like,
Right.
Like every time I hear these descriptions, my mind just starts picturing how it can work, and just seeing the objects in colors, it makes it very vivid to kind of picture it.
Well, it's funny is people tell these stories. Like, you hear people tell ghost stories, and I generally don't believe what I don't experience. And you're like, oh, that's interesting. You saw that. If I were there to see it as well, I could believe it a little bit more. But some of these people were pretty credible, at least. But who knows?
Well, and they said most of the people that report these sightings aren't like the crazy ones. They're normal, same people who feel embarrassed coming forward with it. Oh, I would want to mention, like, one thing that I found interesting is that during World War II, they had a name for these metallic spheres and balls of lights and other objects, unidentified objects that would follow aircraft. They called them Foo Fighters.
What?
Wait a minute.
Instead of air, like the fighter planes and things like that, these were Foo Fighters. I always thought that
I
Foo
love
Fighters
that.
were things fighting Foo, but no, it's the Foo Fighters. And then, of course, you get to Roswell.
Are we going to stay in this century now?
Yes, I think for the most part, let's stay in the 20th century.
And we're going to
beyond.
talk about UFO sightings, some close encounters, and abductions as well. So Roswell, the big one.
So Roswell's kind of the kickoff for a lot of alien enthusiasts.
Yeah, it's 1947, Roswell, New Mexico, of course.
And that's essentially what happened. Is there was an unidentified object in the sky that crashed.
But they don't even know if it was in the sky. Because it was just a rancher that found these pieces, and he's like,
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Well, what is this? There was metallic rods, chunks of plastic, and papery scraps, and he just couldn't describe it. And so this rancher, he reported it, and soldiers from the Roswell Army Air Force Base came to retrieve the materials and basically shoot everyone away. So it was like the cleanup was really mysterious, and so everyone started to ask more questions.
Right. And I think sometimes it feels like the more they try to protect information, the more crazy stuff people make up.
Yeah.
Because in 1990, the U.S. military published 2 reports disclosing that the true nature of the crashed object was a nuclear test surveillance balloon. It was balloons they would send up with microphones on them and see if they could detect there was some sort of like nuclear testing noise that they could hear.
Right.
And so they sent those up as kind of a test, and then it crashed. And of course, they don't want the Russians to find out about it, so they clean it up. But then everyone starts thinking, aliens.
Like, if you ever hear the term weather balloon, it's such a red herring that you don't believe whatever is said
Yes.
before or after. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, weather balloon. Uh-huh.
swamp gas, Venus.
Yeah. In fact, there was a video released in 1995. I'm sure, Joel, you've seen. It was an alien autopsy.
Yeah, yes.
And it was purported to take place after the Roswell incident. The guy who made the movie, he actually admitted 10 years ago that it was a stage film, but it was based on actual footage of an autopsy right
That
after
he
Roswell.
didn't have.
Yeah, that he didn't have.
But he saw.
It's like a dramatized version of what had actually happened.
Right.
Yeah, so I mean, Roswell is the big deal. This is a tourist trap.
That kicked off kind of the whole...
The excitement.
Yeah, alien sightings and abductions really spiked after this.
And maybe excitement isn't the best word to say, considering what
It is if
happened
you
to some of these people.
It is if you've seen the TV series Roswell.
I try not to.
My wife liked it. But this is also kind of what gave birth to mystery surrounding Area 51, which is a military base that is closed off. And I don't know if they still do, but they did do experimental aircraft there. And it just became kind of this hub down there in southwestern United States of quote-unquote alien activity. Whether it actually was alien activity or it was just the military doing some crazy things, who knows?
Well, it was just last year where 1.5 million people said they were going to storm Area 51.
And look what happened.
The 20 people showed up and nothing
but
happened.
Look what happened now.
Oh, no.
Everything bad that happened
Stop
after
it.
the invasion of Area 51, guys.
2020 happened because of that?
Yes.
The Ray did it.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Facebookers.
Yeah, those Burning Man people. I blame them.
Well, and a lot of times they'll deny things. The military will that because maybe there really isn't anything up there. But actually, back in 1948, the Mantell UFO incident, there was a 25-year-old captain, Thomas F. Mantell, in the Air National Guard. He was actually sent in pursuit of an unidentified flying object in his P-51 Mustang fighter, and he actually allegedly reported that he saw an object that, quote, looks metallic and of tremendous size, and he ended up crashing and dying after reporting this. So
Mechanical failure or anything? Did they explain it?
they don't really explain it, but just it was one of those things where, like, was it just it could have been an enemy from a foreign country,
Right.
It could have been aliens. It's just kind of one of those ones where I'm like, wow, someone actually died pursuing a UFO. That's crazy.
Weird. Okay, so in speaking of our military pursuing aliens or possible UFOs, let's jump all the way to 2004. So the crew of the USS Nimitz were about 100 miles off the coast of San Diego, and their strike group had been tracking objects, and this is where they thought that they might be drones. It's one of your favorite bands, right? And so these
might be drones.
These objects appeared at 80,000 feet in the air, and all of a sudden, poof, dropped to sea level. Almost immediately. 80,000 feet down to right above the water.
I could do that. I just run out of gas.
That, you just fall. And they said, and they were tracking these things, and you can actually watch this video and hear their commentary on it. They're like, is that a drone? Like, what the heck is that? They're actually pretty casual about it. And they're like, what the? Oh, good, you got it with the tracker. And it's really strange to hear. And they say it moved 3 times the speed of sound and twice the speed of their own fighter jets. Mm-hmm. Pretty crazy.
And there's video of this.
There's video.
It's
and
called
then
gimbal.
And you're going to see this video that corresponds. So in 2015, there was a craft similar to the one from San Diego, and it was a fast-moving oval about 45 feet long without wings or exhaust, and it was 25,000 feet above the Atlantic, and it flew away. And I think you guys have probably all seen this. This is the one that was decommissioned by the government.
Yeah.
It flew away, it rotated on its axis, and the government in 2017, so 2 years after this happened, confirmed. They said, yep, this is an unidentified aerial phenomena. Mm-hmm. Like, we aren't really sure what this is
what
and
it was.
how it happened.
I will, by the way, this is just the parent in me. I will caution you.
Oh, there's some language.
There's some language. These are military men. They're surprised. They're going to say some words. So just be aware.
And it's from far away. Like, you're kind of like, this looks doctored. But even the military is like, no, that's real.
Isn't it weird, though, that the more cruddy the footage looks, the more believable it is?
Yeah.
Like, I hate it, actually, when I see these videos of, like, ghosts or alien sightings, when it's like, they move the camera and get the perfect framing of the perfect shot of this creature.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't buy it. But if they make it a little blurry, all of a sudden I'm like, well, maybe. Well, that maybe.
Left up to my imagination. I love it.
So that was, 2004, 2014. There's also another one in 2015. They have another video of that one as well. These are the 3 videos that the government decommissioned. One I want to talk about, too, is the 2006 O'Hare International Airport UFO sighting. About a dozen United Airlines employees witnessed a UFO sighting just outside the O'Hare National Airport, and they stopped kind of working and watched it for a bit. So that's 2006.
And it's not just one or two people that are drinking too much moonshine.
But it is United Airlines. So
Yeah, a bad reputation.
Not a sponsor.
Not sponsor.
The funny thing is, too, though, is that a Gallup poll said that 71% of the United States population believed the U.S. government was covering up information regarding UFOs. Then later on, they started releasing these videos and confirmed. In fact, in 2020, the USA Navy admitted that the UFO phenomenon is real, meaning unidentified flying objects are something they've documented.
What better year to release that information when we're like, anything could happen? Aliens would not surprise us.
No.
In fact,
Now's
some
the
might be
time.
welcome, right?
We're prepared.
Yeah.
We are ready for this.
And we are bored.
Bring it on. But are we prepared, though?
No.
Because I'll tell you what,
Oh, I am.
sightings are one thing, abductions are another.
But then I wouldn't be here, so we're okay.
We'd miss you.
Oh.
Our world has been destroyed by a pandemic from our own planet.
Unless Area
Imagine
51 unleashed it.
that as well.
Naruto runs.
Imagine a biological threat from another planet.
Yes.
Like, we are not prepared.
Or are they not prepared for our germs?
Well, as we've seen in a few movies.
Yeah. So it's funny. It's interesting because folklorist Thomas E. Bullard stated that there is an abduction narrative, that almost all abduction stories contain these certain elements. First of all, the capture. They are captured in one form or another. Maybe they're pursued. Examination and procedures. They have invasive psychological and physiological procedures happen to them. Then there's a conference where they're going to be able to communicate with the aliens, either verbally or telepathically. Then the tour. Then the aliens give people
So
a
weird,
tour
right?
of
When they do the
bridge.
tour, because it's usually after invasive
Well,
procedure.
I would want a tour, after that.
Well,
It's
I'm here.
Yeah, well, let's show you around a bit. Can you walk okay? Loss of time. That's something that's very common where people will lose hours and hours. And it's like going under with anesthesia.
Yes.
Where, like, you're just awake. And you're like, wow, all that time passed. That's what they feel like. Then they get returned. Usually it's like at a different location. Like, it's kind of this funny thing that happens there. It's like, oh, they returned them to the wrong house or in a field in the middle of nowhere or with their clothes on backwards. There's always kind of weird return.
Right.
And then also there's, they call it theophany, which is after they're returned, they may have a profound sense of love or a high, similar to a drug high or a love
Really?
for what has happened. Kind of like a Stockholm syndrome for what has happened.
So even though they were just kidnapped and something was done to them.
Well, they got the tour.
Okay, that was worth it.
Guess so. So yeah, the abductions, they usually always follow that kind of narrative. That's the basic elements that they find in all these. So either that's how it happens and all these stories are kind of corroborating one another, or people hear one and they go, that's the narrative I need to stick with too.
And that's what I want to lead to. Psychologists have studied the actual psychology of alien abductees, or what would make someone susceptible to being abducted. So number one is regularly experiencing sleep paralysis or hallucinations when dreaming. I've talked about shadow people on this show. A lot of people believe that these shadow people that paralyze you when you sleep are actually aliens just watching us. There are examples of those in pop culture. The second one is a tendency to recall false memories. So when people are under hypnosis or whatnot, they can be like, yeah, this happened to me, or, and they truly believe it.
Yeah.
The third example of this psychology is high levels of absorption. So like fantasy and suggestion proneness. 4 is new age beliefs. So they don't really believe in the typical medical stuff. They're like, oh, cool,
Yeah.
it's all pretty spacey, and I could believe that. And the fifth one is familiarity with cultural narrative of alien abduction. So exactly what you said, they kind of know how the process goes, and these people are more likely to report a big abduction for their own.
But here's the thing. If I were to be abducted by aliens, I think I would be very hesitant to report it
A lot of people don't.
because I'd be like, I don't want to be perceived as a crazy person.
Or victims.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're right. I would kind of doubt you in many ways if you came to the table and you're like, let me tell you my personal story of my abduction.
Because I'm talking about personal stuff here.
Yeah. I wouldn't really know what to think.
But here's the funny little fact for you. So one of the earliest studies about abductions found about 1,700 claimants or abductees, people that said they've been abducted by aliens. But other surveys suggested that 5 to 6% of the general population may have been abducted.
What?
5 to 6% of the population, and they're just not talking about it.
That's a huge number.
I know.
That's insane.
But that's just it. It's like, could that many people be abducted and just don't want to talk about it? Or maybe their memory was wiped?
Who at this table has been abducted?
I'm not going to raise my hand. I was sworn to secrecy.
The term alien abduction it wasn't even really used until about the 1960s, but there are accounts pre-1960 of abductions, such as in 1896 in California, Colonel H.G. Shaw claimed he and a friend were harassed by, quote, 3 tall, slender humanoids whose bodies were covered with a fine, downy hair. These furry, tall, probably Nordic creatures were trying to kidnap them, which is just weird to think
Nordic.
about.
Weird.
And then you get to go to one of the first cases, one of the first documented cases. It wasn't really widespread at the time. Years later, it became more well-known. It's a Brazilian man, Antonio Villas-Boas.
In 1957.
1957, he said he was out plowing his fields when, and I'm not going to get into all the details. If you want to know all the details, and they get weird, you can read
Yeah,
about
this
a
is going to
story.
get a little weird, but we're going to clean it up.
So Antonio's out there in the field, and he's plowing, and then he sees a red star in the night sky that approached him and got bigger and bigger.
So he tried to make a run for it, basically. He got in his tractor. The tractor ran out of power.
Which, if you're going to make a getaway,
I know, tractor.
don't do it on a tractor.
So he said he just hoofed it. Like, he's like, I got out of there.
Hold on, you guys don't have a getaway tractor?
I'm going to get one now. Getaway tractors?
Yeah.
What kind of music?
Actually, we played bluegrass.
Oh, well, it actually makes sense. So he tried to run away, and he was seized by a 5-foot-tall humanoid wearing gray coveralls and a helmet.
I love that detail.
He says its eyes were small and blue. Its speech was like barks or yelps. And then there were 3 similar beings that joined that alien, and they subdued Boas, and they dragged him back inside their craft.
So these 5-foot-tall, helmet-wearing, like basically Daft
With
Punk
coveralls.
speaking,
Yeah.
and they thought it was barks and yelps, but it was just their music. Around the world, around.
I'm glad
the
it wasn't Lucky.
world. Yeah. Oh, well.
Well,
So then he gets taken on the ship. He says he was stripped of his clothes and covered in a strange gel. Then they poked his chin, took blood samples from his chin, and then locked him in a room all by himself. The room was then filled with this noxious gas that made him violently ill.
he was then joined by another humanoid. She was female and very attractive, he said. But also very similar to the Greys, which I was kind of confused by.
Yeah, she had, like, I think he said cat-like eyes.
Yeah, he said she had hair at her head and it was long and white. But
Yeah.
he was attracted to her. But also he was under this like strange noxious gas that they gave him.
So we won't go into details here, but essentially, after they spent some time together, she then rubbed her belly and pointed at the sky, implying that she was going to raise their child in space.
So as you said, time passes and he says they dropped him off. 4 hours had passed and he kind of just left it there. He, in fact, he's not this crazy guy. He became a lawyer. He got married, he had 4 children, but he always stuck to the story of his abduction his entire life.
Well, not only that, but he suffered from nausea and weakness and random bruises.
Upset
and,
stomach, diarrhea.
Yeah. Side effects.
But then he got examined and they found out that he had been exposed to large doses of radiation and had mild radiation sickness.
Yeah, and he was just a farmer.
So it's one of those things where it's like, was he abducted? And they're like, was he abducted?
Yeah. Actually, that same year, there's this guy named Jesse Long. Much shorter story, but very similar. He had been abducted many times since he was a boy. Actually, first time was when he was 5. And he says that his abductors implanted something in his shin, and he kept it there forever. He finally got it out in 1991, and they said it was just, there's a piece of glass in your shin that had been there since he was a kid. He's like, that's not glass. That's like space glass. But he said...
Space glass!
he said he was up there and he had children, and he said there were 9 children that all watched him as he was laying on the table of the room, and he knew that they were his. And they all walked by him and said, thank you. We'll be okay.
Ooh.
So 9 hybrid children.
That's creepy. But one of the probably the first
big one.
the widespread, biggest first, that's a weird way to say it, abduction was Betty and Barney Hill in 1961.
Yeah, this one's kind of creepy, actually.
And this was over in New Hampshire. So they were coming back from a vacation at Niagara Falls, was it? And I don't know how much detail to give. You could read their entire story, but...
Right. Well, just to summarize, like, they're driving together. Betty's like, oh, hey, look at that in the sky. And she said it looked like a falling star, but it moved upward. They stopped the car to get out, and they're like, oh, let's take a look. And she's like, I actually want to see a UFO because my sister saw one like the year before. Then all of a sudden, the star came right down towards them. So like, let's get back in the car. But then it just kept going like over the highway, and they followed the path, and then it stopped right over them. And Barney, the husband, said it reminded me of a huge pancake.
I like that detail,
Yeah.
actually. So then they're sitting there, and they get out of the car, and they're just staring at this thing, and they see all these beings looking out them through the window.
Oh, and Barney has a gun, by the way.
He does, in his pocket. Mm-hmm. But then he gets kind of this telepathic communication that says, stay where you are and keep looking. Mm-hmm. So then they see this bunch of humanoid forms wearing glossy black uniforms and black caps come out. And then they start to get near them. And then I believe they drive off. They get in the car, freak out, drive off.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they start to hear this buzzing and this beeping noises. And their car, like every time the noises hit, their car would vibrate.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden their car just died. And it just stopped working. And their watches stopped working, that type of thing. So then the ship comes back. And next thing I know, they are 35 miles from where they had started with no recollection of how they got there.
And their 4-hour trip home had turned into 7 hours. So 3 hours were lost here. They get home and they're like, what happened? How did we drive that 35 miles? Why did it take us so long? And they were kind of looking around and things were different. Like his shoes were all scraped up. Her dress was a bit ruined, had pink powder on it as well.
Yeah, they had these little concentric circles on the car's trunk. And when you put a compass near it, the compass would go a little skawampus.
So then they're like, that was strange. Maybe we should tell a few friends. Then Betty started having these dreams 5 nights straight.
But she said in these dreams, these humanoid figures would appear, and they looked nearly human, with black hair, dark eyes, prominent noses, and bluish lips. And their skin was a kind of a grayish color. And there was like one point when like one of them stabbed a needle in her navel, and it caused her agonizing pain. And then he waved his hand in front of her eyes, and the pain completely vanished. It's just kind of bizarre dreams.
And they separated the two, and she calls this one the examiner that is watching her and doing this weird stuff. Like, he even cut off some skin for experimentation. She said, where are you from? And she said he pulled down a map and showed a star system. And so Barney wasn't really too into telling the story. It seemed like Betty was having dreams. He wanted to deny it, but then he was hypnotized. Apparently he was hypnotized because he became afraid of everything. Like, it was really affecting him with PTSD. And when he was hypnotized, he said that their eyes were pushed into my eyes. So even when he tried to close his eyes, when they were testing on him, he just saw the black eyes of the grays just forcing themselves into his eyes. It's
That's creepy.
super creepy, and his tests were a bit more invasive. We'll just say that.
Yes, we'll say that.
Yes.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
So they ended up getting hypnotized and doing therapy that way by a man named Benjamin Simon. And he hypnotized them and questioned them separately. And their stories were consistent with one another as to what happened. But they did differ pretty big from what Betty's dreams were.
Yeah.
So Betty's dreams seemed to be kind of a spin-off of what happened that evening. By the way, there was a made-for-television movie made in 1975 starring James Earl Jones.
Oh, okay. We need to see this. Yeah.
And so they it's called the UFO Incident, maybe, or something like that. But that was kind of the big first one. And then there were a couple other that we just want to jump through real quick. So in 1973, the Pascagoula abduction, I don't know how to say it. Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker were out fishing, and then they were conscious but paralyzed, while 3 creatures with robotic slit mouths and crab-like pincers took them aboard the object and subjected them to examinations.
Yeah, and once again, they said they were examined on the table by something that looked like a big eye.
Ooh.
Yeah, just super creepy. It kind of reminds me of Flight of the Navigator.
A
little bit. The big eye just kind of watching.
Pee Wee Herman voice?
Yeah, that's actually kind of terrifying.
Of course, and then in 1975, you get Travis Walton. Another big one. We already kind of talked about this, the Fire in the Sky story. He's down in Snowflake, Arizona. Him and his buddies were out doing some logging work, and on the way home, they saw a light. Travis went out to investigate and disappeared. So for 5 days, they went to look for him, and then they basically gave up looking for him. They thought he was dead in the woods somewhere. They finally found him after, and he claimed he'd been abducted by aliens, taken aboard their ship, and all sorts of experiments happened to him. Now, they all ended up taking a polygraph test.
Yeah, because no one really believed him.
No.
They're like, if they're acting, they're really good at acting,
Yes.
but I still think it's a story.
But they took all 5 took a polygraph. Well, all of them took a polygraph test, and all of them passed except for one, which was inconclusive.
Well, it was after that when Walton reappeared.
Yes,
So after they were...
Yes, that was like after it came back.
Because
and
they were
after
all suspects.
Exactly. They all thought they had killed him. And that was the story for a long time. But then he came back and said, no, I was abducted by aliens.
Well, and he was like, I've been gone a few hours.
Yeah. Time loss.
Right,
creepy
exactly.
stuff.
And he actually said, and you can watch the movie, and it's actually, for such bad effects. Like, it's really effective.
Yeah, PG-13 creepiness.
So he says he was interrogated by 3 creatures with bald heads and huge eyes. And he apparently encountered many different creatures on the craft who all experimented on him. So, yay.
Creepy.
So this one I found interesting because, once again, the Australian tie. But this is a pilot named Frederick Valentik. So it's probably Friedrich Valentik. And it's 1978. And he was on a training flight, and this is in Melbourne. And he reported, as he was flying this one path, he said, there's a craft following me at about 4,500 feet. And the air traffic controller said, there's no traffic near you. There's nothing there. And he says, no, it's huge. And oh my gosh, it just went above me at about 1,000 feet above me, and it's moving at high speed.
And then actually they were trying to get communication with him, and then he finally reported it's not an aircraft, following which they heard a metallic scraping sounds, and they lost all contact, and he disappeared.
Isn't that horrible?
That's terrible.
So the Melbourne Flight Service assumed that Frederick had crashed, but the sea and air search of the area, there was no crash at all. And so they looked into the disappearance. They couldn't find anything, and they said, it was fatal, so let's just close the case. And then in 2013, a farmer actually said, oh, way back then, yeah, I saw a 30-meter craft flying above my ranch with an aircraft stuck to the side leaking oil.
Whoa.
So from like 3-4 decades before, he said, yeah, I saw something pretty weird, and there was an aircraft just like the one described. I think that's so horrifying.
It's creepy stuff. In 1979, in Scotland, I want to say, a man named it's called the Robert Taylor incident, and he was returning. He appeared home one day, and he was like in tattered clothes, and he was great. He like had scrapes all over him, and he claimed he'd encountered a flying dome which tried to pull him aboard. He says he was out, and a foul odor. He started smelling a foul odor like burning brakes, and that these spheres, similar to sea mines, had tried to seize him and drag him onto a larger ship. And then when him and his wife and some other authorities went out to look at it, they found ladder-shaped marks in the ground.
What?
Where he said he saw the large spherical object. So kind of just weird.
It's a little bit of credence to the story.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's jump to 1987. So this is Christina. Her name is Christina Tilton. She shares the story. She says 2 small aliens dragged her, and they were about 4 feet tall, back to the craft and rendered her unconscious. She later testified she woke up on a stretcher and was transported to the Dulce base. And I thought this was interesting because this is kind of bigger lore among alien believers. The Dulce base is in New Mexico. Mm-hmm. Now, everyone talks about Roswell being this big hub, but actually another tourist site and far more creepy is the Dulce base. And it's basically this mountain that oversees the town of Dulce. Mm-hmm. And they say this mesa plateau, it goes down 2.5 miles, and it's all levels dedicated to alien experiments that the government and the aliens are working together. So she testified that she woke up there and they were taking her down levels, and she kept seeing like tanks. In these tanks were these hybrids, just young alien humans. And she also saw flying saucers of all sizes being constructed in some of the levels. She did have some eggs stolen from her. And later on, and she gives the story, it's pretty harrowing. And later on, another abductee recognized Christina from being on the mothership when she was taken there. Whoa. She's like, I've seen you before. So this facility, this Dulce base, it's not very secret. And yeah, people actually go, and you can get T-shirts. Like, it's all kind of kitsch at this point.
A lot of it is.
But the lore is still pretty creepy.
Believe.
And they say this base is dedicated to genetic and mind control experiments.
And then one of the final ones, because actually UFO abduction cases have been in decline over the last few years. They kind of like revved up in the 60s and 70s and even 80s, and then they started kind of declining. So like one of the last ones was actually in China. A man named Meng Zhaoguo. He said it took place in the Red Flag Forest in Heilongjiang. I can't even say it. Just look up Meng Zhaoguo. You're not going to be able to say it. I can't say that either.
Just look that up.
Look it up. But he said that he was abducted, forced into a relationship with another being, and then he was shown Mars. He was abducted from his house and shown Mars, which they claimed was their homeworld. And that's like one of the last big reported abduction stories was in 1994. Kind of weird.
Yeah.
So,
and it's interesting because now everyone has cameras on their phones.
Cameras, the internet.
Right. And you think these would be more prevalent?
Whoa, that's weird to think that like the internet kind of came into being around
in
94,
the mid-90s.
95.
Yeah. And so you think we'd see a little bit more proof, but granted, the government has even said, yes, there's proof. It's just you think your neighbor would have proof of aliens.
I'm just saying, guys, what if all these abductions they were testing out internet connections?
Oh,
And
no.
once they
5G.
got figured it out, they're like, we're done.
5G.
Al Gore.
So there you go. Like, it's kind of, there's so much about aliens that we could talk about. We tried to boil it down to just kind of real quick stuff. If you want to look up crop circles or catamulations, that's on you.
There's so much research to be done. This is what YouTube is for.
It is.
And you're going to get lost in it, and you're going to become a weirder person. But at the same time, what if the conspiracy is true?
But now we're going to get into the fun part of the Baconsale part.
Yeah.
We've got through the history and taught you a little bit. Now we're going to talk about the more fictionalized version.
We're going to change gears and move into movies. Now we have a list of 30 movies.
Yes.
30 movies that you're going to go through with a little bit more detail and, well, a lot of honorable mentions as well.
Yes.
And so what we do here, this is just Baconsale approval.
Yes,
This
we're-
isn't tiering. This is just yes, no, and if we both agree, great. If we don't agree on one, no.
We tried to stay with scary invasion type movies. We didn't want to do like the fluffy ones, like E.T., or like the nice ones, like Close Encounters of the Third Kind. There are those alien movies as well. But since it is October, we wanted to focus more on the scary part.
Exactly.
Yes.
So here we go.
And the list will be presented in alphabetical order, starting with Alien and Aliens put together.
So from the first movie, after a space merchant vessel receives an unknown transmission as a distress call, one of the crew is attacked by a mysterious life form, and they soon realize that its life cycle has merely begun. So this is the popular Alien franchise, which there are only 2 movies. Sigourney Weaver, fantastic in this role.
She's really
And
good.
the first one, slow, but a horror film. Second one,
Totally.
a great action movie.
Yeah. Like the first one is a total, like, a group of people being stalked by a merciless killer and getting killed off one by one type of movie.
Yeah, and we haven't really described like a xenomorph of this type, but this is an absolutely deadly weapon, and it's stalking you, and it can find you really easily.
With acid blood.
Yeah.
And like, it's quick, it's creepy. Face huggers, terrifying.
And granted, this one does not take place on Earth. It's on a ship, but it's so isolated, and it's so old, it feels very Earth-like.
Yeah, and it felt kind of wrong to talk about an alien show and not talk
course.
about the movie Alien.
Both are totally approved by me.
Totally approved by me as well. I think you should watch these movies because they are horrifying and fun.
Yes.
Next up from 2018, A Quiet Place.
In a post-apocalyptic world, a family is forced to live in silence while hiding from monsters with ultra-sensitive hearing. Starring John Krasinski and Emily Blunt.
Do you guys like the alien designs in this one?
No.
You don't like it? Does it ruin some of the fear?
No, but they're just like, I would have rather not seen it, but
like it.
they're mediocre.
I like them.
Yeah, I think this when they're skulking around the house, they're scary. But when it shows them and all the CG
It shows their face
form,
and stuff. I'm like, it's the thing from Stranger Things.
I lose a little bit. But the swiftness is terrifying.
Well, and
Yeah.
that's the thing is I like the body structure of them because it's just so unusual to what you're used to. It felt alien to me.
Right.
And
good.
I've talked about this movie at length on Baconsale already. I think it's a fabulous film. I think it's a terrifying film. And so definitely approved for me.
Approved.
That's great. Also from 2018, we have Annihilation.
A biologist signs up for a dangerous secret expedition into a mysterious zone where the laws of nature don't apply.
Starring Natalie Portman and
This-
Jennifer Jason Leigh.
This is a trippy movie, but
Yeah.
honestly, for alien invasions, this one feels almost the most real because it distorts.
Which is the most freaky.
What?
then.
It does. It distorts our environment in a way that we can't predict, and it makes us evolve into something that we don't want. And I love the absorption of this whole thing. In fact, it's a slow movie, but has some of the scariest scenes of any movie that year.
Scary scene. There's one horrifying scene.
When the bear attacks and when
That's
the
the
bear
one.
comes into the house.
It's the bear in the house is the one I'm talking about.
But the bear coming in the field and you hear her scream.
it's in the house
Because
too.
it is this alien
bear.
the alien life form assimilates us and turns us into other things. I really like it, so it's approved for me, and I have a feeling it, Joel, you won't.
No, aside from that one horrifying scene, I didn't think it was worth my time. It was like a whole. It was a very.
You didn't like the end because I think the alien that totally becomes you
this
is almost more terrifying
this
than the
movie's
bear.
a sedative. I'll say that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So not approved by me.
From 2011, we have Attack the Block.
A teen gang in South London defend their block from. Why am I doing an Australian accent? From an
how you-
alien invasion, brother.
Bruv.
Bruv. This stars John Boyega, Jodie Whittaker, and Nick Frost. So,
It's so good.
so good.
And they are basic effects. They are hairy black aliens.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is they're like these like kind of shaggy black aliens with these glowing blue teeth. And it's the coolest creature effect because once again, it's like you just haven't seen it. But this is a funny movie, and it's a scary movie. It is also a very hard to understand movie, especially when Clearplay is muting every other word for a bit there. Because they're speaking in very thick South London accents.
If you haven't seen it, watch it. Totally approved.
But you'll get used to the accents, and then it is just so much fun to watch.
And the swearing.
So approved everything for both of us?
For both of you? All right. 2008, we have Cloverfield.
A group of friends venture deep into the streets of New York on a rescue mission during a rampaging monster attack. And yes, this is an alien movie.
And a found footage movie.
Yes.
So this was one where fun in the theaters, but I do feel like the shaky cam got a little crazy. Also, I got a little sick during this one.
This is an event movie. This is an experience movie. So how did you feel during the event?
This is what I'll say. The creature on the surface was not as scary to me. But then
tunnels?
when they got the tunnels and there was the littler creatures,
Yeah.
that was effective. So I'm going to give this approved.
Yep, approved.
And we're going to 1993 with the previously mentioned Fire in the Sky.
An Arizona logger mysteriously disappears for 5 days in an alleged encounter with a flying saucer in 1975. We talked about this one just recently. This is Travis Walton's story from down in Snowflake, Arizona. This is the movie that made Aliens scary for me. So I definitely got to give it approval because it was a PG-13 movie that we'd throw on all the time at all our sleepovers and be like, you got to see this. It's so careful.
Yeah.
My friends would reenact scenes. Travis, get back in the truck.
Okay, good. I'm glad it was just those scenes and not the other scenes.
Yes,
But
just
yes,
the abduction scene.
This is approved because what it saves for the end is gold and it's terrifying.
Yeah, it's a little slow moving, especially at first, but it's horrifying once it gets going.
Next up, from 1996, arguably the most America movie ever.
Boom.
It's Independence
Rocky
Day.
4 is not an alien movie. You know, in the synopsis,
You think
I was
Ivan
gonna
Drago's
say,
a human?
in the second most American movie. So the aliens are coming, and their goal is to invade and destroy Earth. Fighting superior technology, mankind's best weapon is the will to survive.
Is this a horror movie?
No.
Is it
Alien
scary?
invasion movie.
Yes.
Yes.
Is it scary?
There
At
are
times.
that release me.
that's
That's
the creepy part.
scary.
Yes.
When
But
they,
is it
when they
something-
have it after they capture the alien, I
Yeah.
do think it gets quite scary.
Is this something we need to talk about on Baconsale, though? Yes.
Yes.
So I
Is it
think
Baconsale approved?
Yes. This is one we talked about a number of times. We have a whole episode dedicated to it, but Independence Day, yes, approved.
Next up from 86 is Invaders from Mars.
A boy tries to stop aliens who have taken over his town and are attempting to brainwash its inhabitants. Directed by Tobe Hooper, who did Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Poltergeist.
Oh, wow.
So you talked about this one 2 weeks ago. I'm
did.
going to give this another chance because I'm going to say no on the approval.
What?
Because it is a childish version of the movies we're going to talk about next.
It kind of is, but it's a PG.
But I'm going to give it another chance.
It's a PG kid horror movie, but I'm going to give it approved just because it scared me as a kid. I still find it enjoyable as an adult.
So, Joel, you approve. Kent, you would be willing, but you need
it
to
is
see it
not
again
approved.
before you say. Okay, next up is Invasion of the Body Snatchers from 1956.
Just make sure you say which year because there's two here.
So the original is a small town doctor learns that the population of his community is being replaced by emotionless alien duplicates.
Directed by Don Siegel, who did Dirty Harry. Fun fact.
Oh, really?
Whoa.
I just barely watched this one and thought it would be so hokey, and it was really good.
It's funny how even though it's black and white and it's slower, it still captures that fear of like...
And the effects of the pods, even for the 50s,
Yeah.
are really good. There are Hammy performances here, and that's to be expected. And it's a very personal story.
Okay.
This is really just like going to a few people's homes and then running through a ranch. And it's only affecting a few people, but you feel the bigger weight of the threat that's coming.
Because there is this sense of hopelessness in this movie. And even I showed this to my kids. I actually put this in phase 1. It's not on my official list, but I was like, I'll bring the phase 1ers and we'll all watch it together.
Yeah.
And they were pretty scared.
Yes.
Like my son was like, are they going to be okay? And I'm like,
It is approved.
yeah, approved.
Well, this is a pretty well approved list so far. Now we're going to look at Invasion of the Body Snatchers from 1978.
Basically the same plot as 1956, except creepier and 70s-er.
You say like there's hopelessness in that original. This is straight up despair.
Yes.
It
Yes.
feels gross. And Donald Sutherland
Yes.
is amazing in this movie, and he's such a good protagonist here because he feels like the everyman.
He does. And Leonard Nimoy's in this one too, which is kind of fun seeing
Yeah,
him
Jeff
not be stopped.
Goldblum
And
as
Jeff
well.
Goldblum. Yeah, I forgot about that.
This one feels sinister. Like, it's so good.
This is PG, but this is late 70s PG, which means there's some nudity in this.
and there's some creepy stuff with some weird hybrid stuff in there
Ooh,
that
yes, but this
Yeah.
is absolutely terrifying. This is one of the scariest movies. This is a phase 4. This is approved for me.
it's approved.
Double approval. And now from 1988, Killer Clowns with a K from Outer Space.
Aliens who look like clowns come from outer space and terrorize a small town. And they turn people into popcorn, right?
Well, no, they turn cotton candy.
Cotton candy, that's it.
Yeah, they have a popcorn gun. They have cotton candy gun.
This
they have
is
balloon
horror
gun.
comedy from outer space.
This is an intentional B movie. Like, they are trying to be hokey and stupid.
So what kind of credit are you going to give it for that genre it wants to be?
Look, the effects are still fun. Like, you can tell, it's weird. It's so low budget, but you can tell they actually put some effort into making these things look cool.
But how annoying is it?
It's kind of annoying. The
Yeah.
two comedic relief guys I could not stand.
Yeah.
But the effects I liked. I liked the creature effects. I'm going to give this one a barely approval from me.
I'm not giving it approval.
That's fine. I think this movie deserves to be.
And I hate to say it because it's almost so bad it's good, but it's trying too hard.
I watched a lot of these movies with my wife. She actually really liked this one. She thought it was so stupid and funny.
It makes clowns a little less scary.
She's not scared of clowns or aliens. So
I'm really interested on your thoughts on the next one. From 1996, it's Mars Attacks.
Earth is invaded with Martians with unbeatable weapons and a cruel sense of humor.
No.
And
No.
if you listen to episode 77 of our Tearing Tim Burton, Kent and I hate this movie.
I know.
Not approved.
Great cast.
Hate it.
Fun cast. Whoa.
Seriously.
hold on.
Jack Nicholson, Glenn Close, Annette Bening, Pierce Brosnan, Danny DeVito, Martin Short, Sarah Jessica Parker, Michael J. Fox, Tom Jones, Lucas Haas, Natalie Portman. It's a whole cavalcade of stars wasting their time.
And I like the idea of the original comics and cards that this comes from because they're really kind of grotesque versions of Martians killing all of us. This tried to be too funny, and it wasn't.
No.
It's just not good.
It's our first double non-approval on this list. All right. From 1959, Plan 9 from Outer Space.
Evil aliens attack Earth and set their terrible Plan 9 into action.
Plan 9.
They resurrect the dead and try to threaten the living.
Yeah, there's a vampire and a zombie and
Because Bela
aliens
Lugosi's in it for some reason.
This is one of those so bad it's good kind of movies.
Is it the original So Bad It's Good?
Oh,
Directed by
that's a
Ed
good
Wood.
question. Yes, it's 1959, so it's early stuff. I give this one.
It's got to be the first.
I've got to give this approved just because it's one I think people need to see how bad it can be.
Watch this with a group of people. If you do, it's approved. Don't watch it by yourself. You will not find the humor.
It is funny to watch it together with people because you're all laughing together. So yes,
It is
definitely
approved.
Okay. Next up from 1987, we have Predator.
that. That's plot stops right there. A team of commandos on a mission in a Central American jungle find themselves hunted by an extraterrestrial warrior.
Warrior. That makes him sound so much less scary.
This is much more action than horror, but that creature is scary.
Yeah.
And with their being stalked in the forest, it's scary. We watched this so many times as kids.
Would this be as scary if you didn't really see his true face? If he was just invisible the whole time?
That was terrifying to me, was that you couldn't see him coming. You see like this blur.
Yeah.
So horrifying effects in this one. This is definitely approved for me. I don't really like any of the sequels, but that first one, yes.
Yes,
Approved.
absolutely.
And next up, I don't know if you remember this one, Joel. From 2002, it's Signs.
A family approved. A family living on a farm finds mysterious crop circles, yada yada yada. Absolutely approved. This is Alien Invasion hits home.
This is one of the peak Alien movies, I'd say, because it's horrifying and it's touching.
Yeah.
So well done. It deserves to be on anyone's favorite list of 2000 horror movies.
It does deserve to be that.
If we were tiering, this certainly would be tier 1, right? Like,
Certainly.
Absolutely.
near the
Absolutely,
top.
yes.
All right, from 2010, we have Skyline.
Strange lights descend on the city of Los Angeles, drawing people outside like moths to a flame, where an extraterrestrial force threatens to swallow the entire human population off of the face of the earth.
Not bad effects. There's no
No.
cast in this one, really. Like, really TV actors. But the effects are cool. It just vaporizes humanity, essentially.
Well, okay, when-
and then hunts them down in their apartments.
Like the whole movie takes place basically in an apartment complex, and it's the director's apartment complex, the two
It is?
brothers. Yes, and it's like these were special effects guys who decided to make a movie,
It makes sense.
and the effects are good when these aliens let off this light, and if you look at this light, it's kind of like what's that one, Sandra Bullock, Bird Box.
Yes.
It's kind of like Bird Box, where like it starts taking over, and you see like these blue veins start to come out of their like down their skin and everything around their face, and they start to kind of be hypnotized, and it's a creepy effect. But holy cow, is this a terrible movie?
Yeah, the acting is horrible.
The
This is not
ending
good.
just leaves you scratching your head.
Oh, there's a sequel, by the way, that came out 10 years later.
I read about that because it ends, and you're like, oh my gosh, they went there.
Yeah.
It's so campy and so terrible. I don't know why they decided to end that way. And even most of the movie is just them not doing anything. It's
Yeah.
just basically
Hiding.
hiding. And so, no, not approved.
Not approved.
And from 2006, we have Slither.
A small town is taken over by an alien plague, turning residents into zombies and all forms of mutant monsters. Directed and written by James Gunn.
Oh, it's starring
so naturally, you love
starring
it. Love it.
Nathan Fillion, Elizabeth Banks, Michael Rooker, and Jenna Fisher. Pam from The Office is in this movie.
This movie's hilarious
It's a really good cast.
and disgusting.
Oh, really?
That is a very accurate.
Not really scary.
representation.
I didn't find it scary,
No, there's one or two parts where I was like, "Oh, that's creepy."
but disgusting maybe first, and then hilarious.
it's over the top, kind of gross.
Yes, but it's approved. Joel?
I'm feeling a no from you, Joel.
Wow.
Well, no, the problem is that I enjoyed myself, but guiltily.
I think that's an approval.
I'll give it a slight approval.
Okay, we'll take it.
Edited, slight approval, edited.
Beware of the Blob from 1958.
Beware of the blob, it creeps. It seems. Oh my gosh. That's the opening credit music, if you don't know. You pop in this horror movie, and it's like, 50s sci-fi horror movie, and all of a sudden they have this doo-wop band singing Beware of the Blob.
I'll have you know I watched Invasion of the Body Snatchers from the 50s, and I was like, oh, that was really impressive. Then I'm like, oh, The Blob is next from the 50s. And I saw that song, and then I saw the movie.
It's Steve McQueen in like his film debut, and it's like a 30-year-old man trying to play like a teenager, which is already kind of weird. I guess the song at the beginning kind of sets the tone for the whole movie, where it's like you can't really take it seriously. But
And I never did.
The creature effects are good, though.
Yes.
I like the creature effects. There are some scary parts in there. This is a fun family horror movie, so I'm going to say approved.
Oh, absolutely not. I hated this movie.
Wow.
Creature effects are cool. The rest of the movie's awful.
Okay. What about the Blob from 1988?
Okay, so once again, it's the Blob, right? This is a entity from space that consumes everyone in its path. And this one is a very 80s movie. Mm-hmm. But it's also really grody.
It's
like you
gross
you
at parts.
see what happens as the Blob absorbs people.
and dissolves them.
Yeah. And in that way,
There's a part in a movie theater that terrified me. I didn't want to go to movie theaters. Well, there's a part in a phone booth that's horrifying.
and that's why, I mean, the slow-moving terror, kind of like we talked about with zombies, is scary, even though you're like, I could get away from that. But for some reason, these kids can't. They see their friends in the Blob, and this one gets a total approval for me just for the imagery alone. The movie's kind of forgettable, but the imagery is horrifying.
This one stuck with me. Ha!
Yeah.
It's the Blob. So I'm going to say approved as well.
Okay.
And now, I have never even heard of this one. From 1962, Day of the Triffids.
I actually talked about this one on the horror hipster flick picks back in the day.
Oh, wow.
So this is one that terrified me as a kid. After an unusual meteor shower leaves most of the human population blind, a merchant navy officer must find a way to conquer tall, aggressive plants which are feeding on people and animals.
It's a very British movie.
How British is it?
Quite British.
So it's British except for the protagonist is American.
He's an American.
So this is one where, as a kid, there were a couple scenes that terrified me when the Triffids ate people, or when they were attacking people, or when I attacked a dog. Watching it as an adult, the scary parts came from the fact that, so there's this meteor shower, this beautiful, colorful meteor shower, and the news organizations are like, you got to see this meteor shower, it's great. So everyone's out watching them, and the next morning, everyone wakes up completely blind. It's burned their eyes, like their retinas.
And that would seem like a weird A-plot, and then it turns into walking dandelions that are about 30 feet tall, Zach.
30 feet?
Yeah, some of them.
10.
Okay, that's true.
Yeah.
And they are like an army that just surround people, and they can kill them in just strange ways off screen, because it feels like a very BBC
They
1960s
have tongues,
show.
They have tongues that lash out and paralyze you, and then they'll pull you into their
with
mouths.
the worst effects.
It still terrified me. I'm
So-
going to give this one approval, only because the child in me was scared, and even the adult.
So yeah, it's not approval for me, and I'm sorry to say it.
That's okay.
And from 1951, we have The Day the Earth Stood Still.
An alien lands and tells the people of Earth that they must live peacefully or be destroyed as a danger to other planets.
So I saw this one very recently. The first one I saw was the Keanu Reeves one, I think from 2008,
Yeah.
which is not good.
Yeah,
And so
that
I
was
was,
not approved.
I was expecting this one to be surprisingly good. And what it is this character, he kind of hides out, like the alien who lands, he gets a lot of publicity, and there's Gort, the robot,
Yeah.
in like a Teflon
Yeah.
sort of costume, who stands there. He's probably, 8 feet tall, 9
Yeah,
feet
about that.
tall.
Yeah.
The humanoid alien kind of hides out and studies us and just hides from the military, but he really does want us to instill peace through kind of weird messaging in this movie. It's a very pro-police movie
Yeah.
where he's like, this Gort character, we gave all power to our cops, and we are extremely peaceful. It's a utopia where we are. You should do the same.
Wow.
Yeah, it's an unusual story to tell, but it is kind of fun because like this flying saucer lands and everyone kind of just reacts to it.
It's a phenomenon.
And it feels very realistic of how kind of people would react to just a flying saucer landing there. By the way, directed by Robert Wise, who did The Sound of Music, Star Trek: The Motion Picture, The Haunting, Run Silent Run Deep, and West Side Story.
Wow.
It's quite the variety.
That
Really?
is an interesting collection of movies.
This is a sci-fi classic for me. I give it approval.
It is not approved by me.
What?
I'm sorry.
Oh,
I
glad
don't
you brought
love this
the Nick
story.
to you.
It's an in-joke.
All right, and now we have from 1998, The Faculty.
Students suspect their teachers are aliens after bizarre occurrences. And
Directed by
I'm,
Robert Rodriguez, who did Spy Kids.
and I'm so sorry to say this after Day the Earth Stood Still, but this is totally approved. I got such a kick out of The Faculty. It is fun because it is, once again, teenage invasion of the body snatchers.
Got
but-
Elijah Wood, Josh
Yeah.
Hartnett, Famke Jensen. Who else is in this? Robert Patrick, Jon Stewart,
Yeah.
David
Awesome
Newirth.
cat. Wow,
It
that's
is
great.
fun.
Jordana Brewster's in this.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Not approved.
No.
You just said Jordana Brewster and said not approved.
I said the movie's
Is
not
that a
approved.
revenge not approved?
No, it's just
It's fun to watch.
it's just a little.
It's a bit 90s.
It's a juvenile version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Okay, so
I just didn't-
Invaders from Mars.
I didn't really enjoy it
Okay.
as much as I thought I was going to. I'm sorry.
What about 2009's The Fourth Kind?
A thriller involving an ongoing unsolved mystery in Alaska, where one town has seen an extraordinary number of unexplained disappearances during the past 40 years, and there are accusations of a federal cover-up.
Starring Mila
Yo-yo.
Jovovich.
The trailer terrified
It's
me.
scary.
Like, it was a really, really scary trailer.
Because they make it look like it's actual footage
Yes.
of this hypnosis session.
Yes, but then the movie just tries too hard to prove how true and how scary it can be. There's some creepy moments, but the trailer's better than the movie.
It's all about the after effects of abduction, and so that should be scary, but it's just not.
No.
I saw this in the Dollar Theater, and it still wasn't very scary.
Yeah, not approved.
From 1951, we have The Thing from Another World.
Scientists and American Air Force officials fend off a bloodthirsty alien organism while at a remote Arctic outpost. Once again, this is the original The Thing. So yeah, this one is kind of the same setup, but different movie throughout.
Yes.
There's definitely a creature there, but it doesn't become them.
And they all come from the story Who Goes There, I think is the name of the short story. So it's the same basic idea, but just different interpretations. The Thing from Another World, I love it.
Because it's campy 50s.
It's
sci-fi.
totally 50s sci-fi, but I love the dialogue. It's so natural and realistic the way they talk to each other, and they talk over each other. It's very quick-witted. It's slow, yes, but there's also one jump scene that I love showing to my kids.
Yeah.
Because I know it's coming, and I watch them, and they jump out of their skin every time. So I give this one approval.
He's a carrot alien.
He's a vegetable. He's plant-based.
They say he's a carrot in the movie.
That's the one guy dumbing it down.
He's an evolved carrot. It's not approved.
Oh.
Why are you hating on classic 50s sci-fi?
They do it better with the remix.
Wow. Well, that does bring us to 1982's The Thing.
No, she this one not approved. Okay. A research team in Antarctica is hunted by a shape-shifting alien that assumes the appearance of its victims. Directed by John Carpenter, who did The Fog and Halloween and They Live.
Starring Kurt Russell. This one has...
and Wilford Brimley.
Oh, absolutely. This one has the environment from that original, but with the paranoia of who can you trust.
Yeah.
And the grossness
And
of gross.
The body horror involved as well.
Because when the creature shapeshifts, it's not a very smooth process.
It ain't pretty.
No.
This is one of the top tier ones. This movie is absolutely fascinating. Fantastic ending too. So good.
Approved.
Oh,
Approved.
Come on, Joel.
Of course it's approved. This is a freaky movie.
Yeah.
How about 2013's The World's End?
5 friends who reunite in an attempt to top their epic pub crawl from 20 years earlier unwittingly become humanity's only hope for survival.
Wait a minute. I thought that this is one with Seth Rogen.
No, stop that. It's not at all.
I thought this was the one with Johnny Depp, the pirate movie. No?
This has Simon Pegg and Nick Frost and directed by Edgar Wright, the third part of the Cornetto trilogy.
Yeah.
And once again, these aliens are a bit different. These are more, would you say, android type aliens?
robotic.
With an intelligence
Yes.
guiding them.
Yeah.
This movie is so clever. The editing is incredible. It is a lesser part of the Cornetto trilogy, but there's so much wit here that I just can't get over.
A lesser part compared to Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz.
Yes.
That's a fine enough place to be.
Right, but this movie made me fall in love with it with the bathroom fight scene.
I was just thinking of bathroom fight scenes.
It's so good and just so ridiculous, but this one is a total approval by me.
This is an approval by me, too. I was a little disappointed after watching Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz and then this one, but I still enjoyed it. Like, if it were a standalone movie, I would enjoy it.
How about from 1998, The X-Files, Fight the Future.
Mulder and Scully must fight the government in a conspiracy and find the truth about alien colonization of Earth.
Would you say this finally capitalizes on what the show promised for so long?
I don't think so, because I think, well, the show kept going. This was like in between seasons. It was like a season ended, they had this movie, and then they continued in the show.
What a weird concept. I cannot imagine that happening today.
It's fine, though, because I honestly would like to know if people who haven't watched the series can watch this movie and still enjoy it standalone.
That's what I did.
And?
I didn't watch the series till maybe 5-6 years later, and I enjoyed the movie. It made me want to watch this show eventually, because what I got was an actual promise realized of seeing these aliens that the show maybe talked about.
Scully didn't. Spoiler alert.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it seemed like the movie capitalized on the grays, where the show was just overly mysterious about it.
Yeah, they can't. Well, they did.
And
They
the
gave a little
black
more, but they
ooze.
didn't still give you all the answers. They kept that for the finale.
But still, it was a big budget episode of X-Files that was fantastic.
and it's creepy.
Yeah.
So,
Approval.
Black Ooze aliens creep me out. Approved.
And from 1988, They Live.
A drifter discovers a pair of sunglasses that allow him to wake up to the fact that aliens have taken over the Earth.
Did you just chuckle as reading this
I
synopsis?
did. Sunglasses. Starring Rowdy Roddy Piper. Zach, have you seen this movie?
I have not seen all of this movie, but I've seen the most important part of this movie.
The fight scene?
I'm only here for 2 reasons.
Oh yeah. No, there's like a 5 to 7 minute just fight scene, but it's not like a cleverly choreographed. It's like watching a wrestling match between two guys.
But it's like a
in
drunken
in an
wrestling
alley.
match.
Yeah.
But the campiness of this is so over the top, and I can't get enough.
Yeah, it definitely leans into that.
It's like a tier 2 alien movie, because I don't
think.
think of it as alien. It's just kind of like government control by forces we don't understand.
But they're definitely aliens.
They
in it,
are
and they
aliens.
have invaded.
Ugh. So yeah, it's approval.
This has a weird allure to it. There's something
good way to say it.
strangely likable at this movie. I give it an approval, even though I just think it's bizarre. So campy.
And then from 1953, War of the Worlds.
A small town in California is attacked by Martians, beginning a worldwide invasion. So it's 1953, but the effects are still like the effects of the ships.
How are they so good?
Still look pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of photon beams and whatnot that are a bit silly, but when they vaporize people, it's terrifying.
Yeah.
This is one that I feel, and definitely it's like a Cold War type movie, and it's a fear of everything. There are people that trust in the process and want peace, but these aliens sure don't.
No, they don't. They want to invade.
And they destroy the planet. This is one of those movies like The Day the Earth Stood Still, if it had a budget, and this one capitalizes on that with an iconic ending as well.
Yes, very popular ending. Well, I shouldn't say popular, infamous maybe.
This is a tier 1 alien movie for
Well,
sure.
Kent, this is a 50s sci-fi movie. Just trash on it like you have all the other ones.
I know, but there's color to it.
Zach, I got to stand up to this because it's in color. That's
Yeah.
why you like it?
Yeah.
I got to stand up for 50 sci-fi and say this approved before Kent says it's not approved. Okay, Kent, go ahead and say it's not approved
Not
now.
approved. It's approved.
Yeah. No, this one is interesting because it gives you...
This is the nightmare of the alien of the alien invasion.
It gives you like hopelessness upon hopelessness because it keeps saying, oh, here's a possible solution. That didn't work. Here's a possible solution. That didn't work. And it gets to the point where you're like, well, goodbye, humanity. We're screwed.
Yeah.
And finally on this list, we have War of the Worlds from 2005.
As Earth is invaded by alien tripod fighting machines, Tom Cruise and his family fight for survival in the sci-fi action
Oh,
film.
this movie, it just makes me want to jump on a couch and shake people's hands.
You know, it's too bad because I generally like what Tom Cruise chooses to make.
Yeah.
And then he made this movie.
You don't like this movie?
I don't like this movie.
Interesting.
It's a straight up action movie,
Sure.
and the effects are cool.
They are cool.
But it's almost like cool in a 2012 sort of way where it's just mass destruction thrown in your face.
Yeah.
But the scene, there's the basement scene when the scout thing is trying to find him. That's pretty creepy.
Yeah,
and
but
fun.
like Tim Robbins is involved, and I hate him in this movie.
See, I couldn't stand Dakota Fanning in this movie because all she does is scream the entire time.
And his annoying son too. It's like, Dad, I hate you. I want to go back to Mom, even though the world's being destroyed. Hey, shut up.
So you're not approving this?
I'm not approving it.
I'll give it a slight approval just because there were iconic moments in this. I thought it was a fine retelling. I'm not giving a wholehearted approval, but
Okay.
it's fine.
Okay.
Whoa, so
That's a lot of movies. That was 30 movies. Okay, now that we finished, that was the official list that we wanted to talk about.
Are we done with the show?
Oh, no. You guys wouldn't let me be done? Okay, we have 30 more movies, but these are just honorable mentions.
We're going to go quick, right?
I don't want to hear anything more
Lots
than
of
whether
time.
you approve or not.
Lightning round.
Lightning round.
Just approved
Ready?
or not approved. No synopses. Just approved or not approved.
Nope, just approved or not
Okay.
approved. Ready? Alien 3.
Not,
No.
not approved.
Alien Resurrection.
Not approved.
Not approved.
Alien versus Predator.
Not approved.
Not approved.
This is a fun list, guys. Alien Covenant.
Approved.
I will approve that one as well.
Wow.
It's kind of scary.
Battle Los Angeles.
Not approved.
Not approved.
Oof. Cocoon.
Haven't seen it.
What?
I don't know if I've seen it all the way through.
Wait,
Hold on.
just
Wilford Brimley goes skinny dipping
I know the story. I've
in
seen
a
clips.
in a pool with giant
No explanations.
No
Speed
explanations.
round.
Moving on.
pods. Not approved.
Not approved. Cowboys and Aliens.
Not
approved.
approved.
Although Olivia Wilde is beautiful.
No explanations.
Sorry.
Critters.
Not approved.
Oh, not approved. I hate to say it.
Dark Skies.
Approved.
I wish more people knew about this.
They should-
Approved.
It's on Netflix.
District 9.
Approved.
Totally
Oh,
approved.
such an approved. Come on. Edge of Tomorrow.
Also very
Approved.
approved.
Evolution.
Not approved.
Oh,
Approved.
This was so bad.
You thought it was
It's
funny?
such a stupid
Moving on.
comedy.
Independence Day Resurgence.
Not approved.
Not approved.
It.
It's
I guess
kind
that
of
is
an
an alien movie, yeah.
Chapter 1 approved. Chapter 2 not approved.
Chapter 1 approved. Chapter 2 I haven't seen yet.
Men in Black.
Approved.
Approved.
Men in Black 2.
Not approved.
Not approved.
Men in Black 3.
Better than 2, but not approved.
I would approve number 3.
Men in Black International.
Not
No,
approved.
not approved.
Monsters versus Aliens.
Approved.
Actually, it was pretty good.
Yeah.
Approved.
Pacific Rim.
Not
Approved.
Not approved.
Joel,
What?
Not approved.
It's awesome.
Not approved.
Pod People.
Mystery Science Theater? Approved.
Mystery Science Theater approved.
Prometheus. Come on, Kent. You know you want to
I mean,
approve it.
it's better the second time I saw it.
Hey, no explanations.
Joel, what do you say?
Not approved.
Okay, I'm going to approve it then.
Whoa. Spaced Invaders.
Remember that was from the 90s?
Yeah, not approved.
Not approved.
Starship Troopers.
Approved.
Not approved.
It's smart, Joel. It's smarter than you think.
No explanations.
The Abyss.
Approved.
What?
What?
Moving on.
It's been a long time.
What? The Arrival.
I haven't seen
I
it.
haven't seen it.
Oh, that's Charlie Sheen one,
Charles
right?
Sheen.
Yeah, I don't know that one.
The Darkest Hour.
Not approved.
With Churchill?
2011.
Oh, that's,
Yeah, it's not approved.
I haven't seen it.
The Day the Earth Stood Still.
The
with
2000
Keanu.
Not approved.
Not approved.
The Thing from 2011.
The remake of The Thing.
Approved. It's a prequel to The Thing from 2000 or from 1980s.
I will approve this one as well.
Mary Elizabeth Winstead's in it.
And The Tommyknockers.
Not approved.
The doll scene scared me, but it's not approved.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's one of those made-for-TV movies that just didn't work for me.
Zipped through that list. We are
Oh,
done.
we're done? Okay.
We are done. You made it.
Man, maybe we should speed round for the whole time.
Don't give our listener the idea.
No, but the problem is some of these movies are going to be like, what was that movie? And they don't know.
I would
You
say,
didn't
like-
approve The Abyss?
Well, it's been I haven't seen it since I was 13.
It's a very important movie, Kent.
Is it?
It is.
I don't know. I'll give it another shot.
You should.
Not in October. So here's the thing. I think we had more quality movies in the alien genre, the alien invasion genre, than we did for vampires or witches. Ratio wise, I think there's higher quality here, even though there's some horrible movies here.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is I think you're absolutely right now that I think about it, because the Witches movies were mostly terrible. Werewolf movies, very hit and miss.
Yeah.
Vampire movies, some good, mostly bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, zombie movies are kind of fun.
Yeah, they are kind of fun.
Yeah.
But even those aliens are not as immediately scary by appearance, the movies are sometimes better. And that's just
Yeah.
because sci-fi has maybe come further. Maybe it's more accepted.
Well, in Dark Skies, for example, it could have been this is a 2013 Kerry Russell movie. It could have been a horror movie
Yes.
with ghosts, but instead they decided to go aliens, and it's effectively scary, I thought.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, in your list of 30 movies, you
60.
had Well, there's that. But of the 30 initial list that you talked about, 18 of them you both approved.
Wow. Okay.
So and that's got to be your highest ratio. Yeah,
Oh,
it's
not too
gotta
shabby.
be. Yeah.
But we hope that we at least, on this October season, gave you a little sense of the spooky in regard to extraterrestrial beings that may or may not be out there. So let us know if you have had any sort of unusual experiences with either unidentified flying objects or even if you had a close encounter of some sort of kind. We want to hear about it on our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter accounts. We want to hear some interactions here before the government shuts it down.
But before we go, we want to make sure we thank a few special patrons. In the I Am the Listener category, we have Adrian Gray, Terry Finley, Kyler Loves Baconsale, Crew Dutler, Sean Sandquist, Alicia Bass, Braden Winterton, Sweet Bottom Cakes, Jessica Drought, Jennifer Kilkowski, Babs, and Glow Clendaniel. And then in the Bacon Council, we have Chris Anderson, Nicole D. Hale, Ryan Farron, Mats, Stephen Ross, Jessica Terry, Brian Madsen, and Reverse Listener.
Thank you so much. We really do appreciate you,
We
patrons.
do. We love you, patrons.
And we appreciate you too, listener. Thanks for listening to Baconsale and spreading the word of government conspiracies and aliens around.
Jesus.
But if you want to find me, you can find me at 76Joel on Twitter. You can find me performing with Quickwits. They're performing for free online on Facebook. For more details, go to qwcomedy.com or go to the Quickwits Facebook page.
If you want to find me on Twitter and Instagram, it's at Kenny3DD. If you want to read my movie reviews, it's ShowtimeShowdown.com.
If you want to connect with me, you can do so on Twitter and Instagram at Tumbling Mustard. But most importantly, make sure you're following Baconsale on Twitter and Instagram, as well as liking the page on Facebook. While you're doing that, head over to tpublic.com/Baconsale, where we have some new merch. We've got a new shirt, which I also love as a pillow, of one of our recent episode images, which I just love. And then if you want to support the show further by doing more than just listening, you can go to patreon.com/Baconsale and support the show. At just $3 a month, you can start hearing some of those famous Bacon bits that happen sometimes. There's other fun benefits at different levels as well. But until next time, what? Close Encounters of the Baconsale kind.
I thought I'd befriend an alien after giving him Reese's Pieces.
They may not kill me, but I will not like what they do to me.
Well, can I ask you a probing question?
Sliding door style.
Okay.
But apparently...
Wow, you just brought up sliding doors.
Right?
Like Gwyneth Paltrow movie?
Yeah, that's what I just brought up. Joke.
Well, we're getting our conspiracy hats on now.
Wow.
Yes.
What's that bright light outside? It's a didgeridoo.
They're Australian. Australian aliens. So if you see a tall Swedish person, they're probably an alien?
So I don't trust blondes anymore.
I can't talk because I'm controlled by the aliens. Okay.
Via the German.
It's the Nordic.
Nordic.
It's the Nordic aliens.
This is how people know I talk, yeah?
Yeah.
In fact, no.
Yeah.
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 In fact, statistics. All right, here we go.
I only just now saw your text about flannel.
Thanks a lot, Facebookers.
We're prepared.
Yeah.
We are ready for this.
And we are bored.
But then I wouldn't be here.
Oh, let's show you around a bit. Can you walk okay? You can read
Yeah,
that
this is going to get a little weird, but we're going to clean it up.
Hold on, you guys don't have a getaway tractor?
Space glass.
5G.
Al Gore.
If you want to look up crop circles or cat emulations, that's on you.
Or sometimes they just reject you if they don't think you're good genetic material.
That would be so
Wouldn't that be
disheartening. Start getting raised up like, never mind.
Last pick for the kickball team and this.
Aw. From an alien invasion, brother. Basically the same plot as 1956, except creepier and 70s-er.
Pizza's happening.
It is. I enjoyed myself, but guiltily.
1958.
Beware of the blonde big creeps. It seems.
Yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo-yo.
That really does. Oh, it's a train.
So you said the show kept going.
It's just a train, guys. It's just a train.
Then you have to do the post-production.
I mean, you could have said swing away. Truth is out
You
there.
could have said,
No, you're doing the
I am
the
going
thing.
to. Actually, I don't want to.